Oh, good morning, first and second period. It's Thursday, February 1st. We've made it to February. Hope you're having a great morning. Well, I'm not in class today, as you can see, and it's not because I'm assigning homework and wanted to avoid your anger. It's because I've got a meeting during first and second hour. So I'm going to get you started with today's work. Go ahead and just keep watching this video. If you haven't already, you can pause it. Get your workbooks, turn to page 44 so we can pick up where we left off with the French Revolution. So I did mention we've got some homework tonight. It's mainly to study for tomorrow's French Revolution quiz, 10 multiple choice, 10 matching. But if for any reason you don't finish the work for class today, you should finish that for homework tonight as well. Especially because what you do in class today is on tomorrow's quiz. All right, so let's do a quick recap of things we have to do. 1 and 2 coming at you together. So keep on watching this video. I'm going to give you some background information that you'll need on the very final phase of the French Revolution and how that French Revolution wraps up. And what you're going to end up doing at the end of this video is taking some notes on the outcomes of the French Revolution on page 45 of your workbook. Once you're done with that, you're going to learn a bit more about Napoleon Bonaparte by completing a practice case study on Napoleon, which is posted on PowerSchool, and I'll show you exactly how to get to that. All right, so you're on page 44. We've got a lot going on with our timeline of the French Revolution, and we're going to zoom in on the outcomes, but let's do a quick recap of how we've gotten to this point, the wrapping up of the French Revolution. So some things you should already have on your timeline. Well, let's start at the end of the liberal phase. Let's go all the way back to that, when France becomes a constitutional monarchy, the first revolution that overthrows absolute monarchy. Well, we know that new constitutional monarchy got off to a really rocky start. Well, it doesn't satisfy everybody's demands. People still want food. Radicals want a more enlightened form of government, a republic. And then we've got all these events that add fuel to the fire. It just makes the revolution incomplete. Austria and Prussia have threatened France with war. France declares war on them instead. King Louis XVI tries to flee the country, the flight to Varennes. He's caught, arrested for treason. We've got the assassination of political figures like Marat, and they become martyrs for more revolutionary change. And then the trial of Louis XVI results in him being declared a traitor and executed. So France becomes a republic. This is the second revolution, the overthrow of the constitutional monarchy, especially because they decided to cut off the monarch's head. And what we covered yesterday is that that republic didn't do a very good job at being a republic. France was in so much chaos, at war with Europe, also in a civil war against counter-revolutionaries, that instead of really functioning as a republic, because there's chaos, this guy Robespierre declares, this is an emergency. We need to have a stronger government that can impose order and reestablish security. And his method of doing that is the Reign of Terror, which really fails at providing order and security because everybody's just living in a state of fear. Well, Robespierre himself is executed. Members of the government see him as the source of all their problems, and they give him the same treatment that he gave tens of thousands of other people. And after the execution of Robespierre, France is in a little bit of a lull, and the government isn't very powerful until 1799, a date that you'll want to add to your timeline. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte comes to power through a military coup d'etat, which is taking power by force. So I want to give you a little bit of background on how he was able to come to power, what he did while he was in power, and then you're going to learn a lot more about him with your case study. So who was this guy, Napoleon Bonaparte? Well, he gets his start as a very young man and a brilliant military general in the French army. And he had a lot of success abroad fighting the Austrians and the Prussians in the wars of the French Revolution. Remember that the French thought it was a great idea to go ahead and spread liberal ideas to the rest of Europe. So he's known as this great conqueror, and he's very popular among soldiers as a general. And he uses that power and popularity to, first, take over a lot of Europe. You'll be analyzing this map much more soon. But what you see here on the left is Europe before the French Revolution, and on the right, Europe during Napoleon's time in power. So a little bit more analysis of that to come. And with the popularity of his conquests, he comes and he takes over power in the French government. So that was his military coup. A few years later in 1804, as this image shows, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France. And in this particular picture, he's crowned himself emperor, and now he's crowning his wife Empress of France. So think about the evolution of France's political system. They've now wound up with an emperor. And as emperor, Napoleon tries to do a lot of reforming for the French people. You're going to read some documents of those reforms. And you can see by these images that a lot of these reforms are in the spirit of being kind of like a Roman emperor. He always tried to style himself as a Roman emperor, kind of a reference back to republic. But Napoleon's power does not last forever. He gets to rule France until 1815. Here he is, a defeated Napoleon. He looks very defeated. And he's defeated in battle. And he's defeated by a coalition or an alliance between the other powers in Europe, mostly Prussia, Austria, and Great Britain. He'll try to conquer Russia, but he will not be able to do that. So, at the Congress of Vienna in 1815, the powers of Europe get together and they have to look at a map of Europe, which has been greatly changed by Napoleon, and they have to make key decisions about how they're going to restore order to the entire European continent. And you're going to analyze this map a little bit more in your case study also, so you'll get a chance to look at exactly the decisions that European powers made after they conquered Napoleon at the Congress of Vienna. So let's turn to page 45. Let's go through the ultimate outcomes of the French Revolution, even after Napoleon, and then you'll go back and dig deep into what Napoleon did. So first of all, outcomes for France. After the defeat of Napoleon, his law code is kept. You'll read a little bit of his law code to see exactly what it said, and if it was a good law code or not. And they wind up with a mixed government. So they actually bring back a monarch, a descendant of Louis XVI. And he rules with the Constitution, the Napoleonic Code, plus the king. You're going to evaluate what kind of ruler Napoleon was based on his law code in a moment. Outside of France and the rest of Europe, the Congress of Vienna restores absolute monarchs all over the continent. So Napoleon's attempt and the French Revolution's attempt to export the ideas of the Enlightenment seem to have failed. In fact, there's a very anti-Enlightenment reaction in the rest of Europe, a reaction against the liberal ideas associated with the Enlightenment. However, liberal ideas do not go anywhere. I mean, think about our world today. Most countries in the world are rooted in liberal ideas of the Enlightenment. Their laws are. So worldwide, the French Revolution continues to inspire a lot more liberal revolutions. And the first ones that follow are the revolutions across Latin America, South America in particular. So we get the spread of liberal revolutions despite the fact that in Europe there's a reaction against them. All right, so now that we've kind of gone through the very end of the French Revolution and how it turns out, you're going to kind of take a step back to look at Napoleon in more depth, what kind of ruler he was. So on Power School, if you go to the Unit 4 page, then the French Revolution, then you'll go to a sub page just called Napoleon, and you'll see that there's a Google form posted there. And this is your case study. These case studies, as you know, are on your final exam, so it's good practice for your final exam, but more generally, primary source reading skills, good SAT skills also. You're going to learn a lot about the topic of Napoleon in the process, and of course, there's Napoleon questions on your quiz tomorrow, so it will get you ready for your quiz. The Google form's got everything you need on it, including maps, text, images. However, you can also use the text in your workbook, pages 62 to 66. It's the exact same case study. So if you're having a hard time reading the text on your screen or anything, it's in your workbook. However, you're going to really need to use the colored maps that are in the case study posted on the Google Doc. And even if you work in your workbook, make sure you do the Google Doc anyway because you're going to submit your responses for a score. It's just for practice though, but I want to see how you do. All right. Head to Power School, get started on the case study, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.